So hi everyone, it's Nina Collins and from the Wolfer, and we're here today with Dr. Jen Gunter, famous gynecologist, author of the Vagina Bible and the Menopause Manifesto, which is just out a couple days ago. Jen, hold up your book too, because that was super cute. Oh. It turns out she's also written a first book on premature babies, which I didn't know about, so I'll have to look up. But Jen is very active online, has a very popular newsletter, very big on Twitter. I think of her as kind of very awesomely feminist gynecologist who debunks a lot of myths. And so we were actually earlier talking a little bit about testosterone pellets and the O shot, which are both complete bullshit, according to Jen, which I really appreciate, and totally what I suspected as well. And I actually wrote a piece about the O shot and said it was complete bullshit because I actually did it stupidly. I will not be doing testosterone pellets.
But okay, so I'm fascinated that you wrote a piece about the O shot, and I'll tell you why. Because when you search for the O shot, the only thing that comes up are positive reviews. So the guy who invented it, oh yeah, he's a master. He's an awful at sexual health, but he's a master at internet search engine optimization.
So that is interesting. That is, we should start blasting out my anti-O shot article. Yes. It was pretty funny. I'll send it to you.
You should.
Yeah, it was complete bullshit. And it was really expensive. I mean, I got a huge discount because I was going to write about it. And then I never, sent them the article actually. But all right. So testosterone, actually, one more question. I wanted to say that it makes sense to me what you're saying about pelvic floor muscles weakening, affecting orgasm strength, because I have a little bit of this this urinary issue where I feel like I have to pee. I have the kind of the tightening of the muscle issue, not the loosening of the muscle issue. Right. So I wonder if that's contributed. And I have been thinking about doing pelvic floor PT. I just didn't want to do it during COVID because it seemed like a huge hassle. But I think I will do that. And maybe that will help me strengthen my orgasms. But strong vibrators totally work. So I agree with you. That's the issue I'm having. It's a muscle issue, and fine. I'm not going to take testosterone. But we do have a question from the audience from a gynecologist, Wolfer, Melissa Pearlstone, who asks, do you never prescribe testosterone? She does, she says, but only for certain patients. So do you ever prescribe it?
Very rarely, and only for people with libido issues who have tried everything else, and there's no pain with sex, and we're assured that there's no other issues related to relationship issues, and that we may have tried other medications as well. So, there are unresolved safety issues with testosterone, and people have to know that. The trials in the United States that of topical testosterone for women were halted because of unresolved breast cancer issues, right? And so a year because of that. So they never sought approval because of it. And there's also a study that shows testosterone doesn't work for libido. So it's, again, I see tons of people on it who have no improvement, like a lot. I see people who've been on it for 2 years and they're not any better. And I'm like, well, why are you still on it then? This is something that if you're going to try it, it would be a 12-week window to see, does this give you a substantive change in your quality of life or not?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I have to say, I have met women. I did an event last week for Revel in San Francisco on this subject, and I met women who really rave about it. But then I talk to doctors who say what you're saying. And so
you have to remember, with medications for sexual problems, the placebo response rate's really high.
Really high. Yeah.
Yeah, of doing something for you to for sex.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the O shot is complete placebo. Like, it's psychological. It's absurd. People think they're injecting blood into their clitoris and it's making them, anyway, whatever. So let's talk about supplements for a sec, because of course, when, menopause starts, I mean, I certainly went out to the health food store when I was starting with perimenopause at 46 and bought a shitload of supplements. I now no longer I take very few. But what is your position on supplements?
So that's a really great question, because it's very hard for the average consumer to figure out, because so many things are sold under the supplement umbrella.
Yeah.
So I tell people to try to divide them into single ingredient supplements and then multi-ingredient supplements. That's a little bit easier to sort out. Now, there are some single ingredient supplements that may be beneficial. So for example, over the age of 50, our ability to make vitamin D decreases.
And I take D.
And especially if you're good about sunscreen and, those types of things, which, hopefully people are. So a vitamin D supplement makes sense as we age.
Mhm.
If you're not able to get 1,200 milligrams of calcium a day in your diet, then supplementing calcium makes sense because you need to have enough for your bones. So, or if you follow a vegan diet, you might need to take some B12. And sometimes some people who are vegan need to take some iron. So those are things supplementing a nutritional deficiency. So if
Thinking about it as one, what was the word you used?
it's a single ingredient.
Single ingredient is a very good way of thinking about it. Like I also take omega-3 and now I take CoQ10 because my cholesterol has been a little high. But okay, so
Yeah,
single ingredient supplements.
but not all of them are good. So are you supplementing what your diet is missing? And is it a single ingredient? Then that's probably okay, as long as you truly are missing that in your diet. But then there are some single ingredients, and then all of the multiple ingredients are essentially untested. So for example, black cohosh is a common one that people take for menopause, and it's a really great case study in why it's all a big scam, because people are sold the idea that black cohosh is helpful because they're told that Native Americans used it for menopause. Well, they didn't, so that's not true. But with supplements, there's a lot of exoticization of other cultures to make it sound like it's different, right? Black
Like what's that thing called that everyone takes? Ashwagandha or something? It's some, I don't know.
Yeah,
Anyway,
again, there's a lot of, if it's from another culture that's foreign, it must be, or if it's from someone who's not, not from your culture, it must somehow be better for you. And this plays into this idea that a lot of natural people have, that there's secret knowledge, and you know these things are pretty easy to study if things are helpful or not. So black cohosh, for example, hasn't been shown to be effective for hot flashes. It's associated with liver failure, and 25% of black cohosh products in the United States even contain black cohosh. They're adulterated with other plants.
okay. All right. So single ingredient supplements is something to think about whether it's a single ingredient or a multiple ingredient. And basically it sounds like your advice is don't take too many and be really careful and thoughtful. Also, the other thing I've always learned about supplements is if you're going to take supplements, think hard about where you're getting them from, who's producing them and what kind of quality they are, because you can just get really crappy ones.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's hard to sort of tell the difference. So there's two supplements that have been shown to have, there's some low quality data, but they don't seem to be harmful. So S-Equal, which is a phytoestrogen supplement that can help some women with hot flushes, and Relazin, which is sort of like a sort of a bee pollen kind of extract thing, and that can be helpful for some people with hot flushes too. The data is not great, but it doesn't look like it would be harmful, and they're definitely those. So those two things are fine.
Yeah, I tried both of those things and they didn't work at all. But
Yeah,
anyway, I hear you.
the
So
data
what is and what is your, I mean, I know the answer to this because I've read your work, but tell the audience, what is your position on HRT?
so menopausal hormone therapy. The problem when people talk about menopause, that's all they seem to talk about. And obviously, it can be a very important puzzle piece for women, but it's not the only thing. So MHT is something that can help a lot of people. It is the best treatment for hot flushes, for example. It is be very helpful with night sweats as well, and it can be protective for osteoporosis. So those are sort of the reasons that we recommend using. If there are other benefits that might sort of go into someone's decision to use it, but aren't considered reason enough. So it may reduce the incidence of type 2 diabetes, may reduce the incidence of colon cancer, right? So and it may protect against the loss of muscle mass that we get during the menopause transition. So there are some other sort of benefits as well.
Isn't
There are some, go ahead.
Sorry, isn't it also possible that it may help with brain health and with heart health a little bit? That's
So the data heart health is still, it's probably heart neutral for many women who are using transdermal therapy, and it may be slightly beneficial, but that's not an indication for starting it.
okay.
The brain health has really not been sorted long term yet. So you have to sort of distinguish between people starting MHT who are very young. So if you are 42 and you go through menopause, then going on MHT actually will be protective, because the earlier you have menopause, the greater the risk of things like dementia and heart disease. So if you're someone who goes menopause at an early age, it will be protective, to take it. But the long-term benefits are still actually being sorted out, whether this is helpful from a dementia standpoint or not. Uh,
Okay.
and so there's a study called the KEEPS trial, and we're getting more and more data on that. And so certainly right now it looks like 5 to 10 years of use that there is no negative outcome, but whether we're going to see that long term is still, people should
That-
never assign benefit. It's good to get the data.
yeah, that was actually my next question, because I feel like I hear very conflicting things about how long people can be on hormone therapy. My understanding, when people ask me, and I always say I'm not a doctor, but my understanding is that you want to start it early, right around when you go into menopause or right before. And that, so you wouldn't, I don't think, put a 62-year-old who's 10 years into menopause on HRT or MRT, as you call it. But how long is it? Because we've heard wolfers say that, like, my doctor is refusing to prescribe it for me after 5 years. Like, they won't give it to me anymore, or at 10 years. But it seems a little random. Like, different doctors do different things.
Yeah, so certainly you're exactly right. If you're over the age of 60 or more than 10 years from menopause, we don't recommend starting it. In those women, there is an increased risk of heart disease and an increased risk of dementia with going.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
So that's, we don't recommend that. So and also, if you're a new onset of hot flashes when you're 64, that is really unlikely to be menopause, right? That's not going to start like 14 years after.
Right.
But if you are within 10 years of your last period or under the age of 60, then it's a very, very low risk medication. Every medication has risks. I mean, driving in your car has a risk, right?
Totally. No, I finally went on HRT. I resisted for a long time because my mom died of breast cancer young at 46, and I was afraid and I didn't want to be on drugs. And then my hot flashes got so debilitating that I went on a low dose patch and progesterone, and I love it, and I'm grateful, and it's all good. And I feel hopeful that it is also probably, helpful for other things like bone health and.
Yeah, it will be. And I think the thing about it is what I tell people is the risks. If you're using transdermal, oral has higher risks. So if you're using a transdermal estradiol and oral progesterone,
Mhm.
and the 5-year risk from a breast cancer standpoint is very negligible. There's a slight bump. You're talking, 6 per 10,000 women per year.
Got it.
If you're on it much longer, that risk may go up a little bit. If you're taking.
Okay, so 5 years is kind of a conservative. Got it. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. The first five
Um,
years, people, it's like, as like, really don't worry about it. And even after 5, the risk is, it may go up a little bit, but that's still low risk.
yeah.
And you just have to decide for you, is that risk worth?
And how often is it that when people go off hormones after 5 to 10 years, that their hot flashes come back? That's a question we get a lot.
Well, they can, but a lot of the really bad symptoms are related to the menopause transition, when your hormones are going up and down and up and down and up and down. And once you get through that hormonal chaos, it may not be as bad. And so
Mhm.
that's an individual thing, right? So, so you have to kind of play it by ear. And this is why medicine needs to be individualized, and we need to take, every person's, health into consideration.
Yeah.
Oh,
All
for
right,
a
great. So my next question for you is, what do you think about the kind of trendiness of menopause suddenly? Or I don't know if you really want to say menopause is trendy, but there are a lot of products now, a lot of companies coming out, a lot of communities. People are talking about menopause, I think, in a way that it's never really been talked about. What do you think about that?
I think that's great. I think that for too long, women in menopause have been treated like they're fourth class citizens, that there's nothing worse than an aging woman's body. So I think that is fantastic, because women tell me they feel lonely and they want community. And so I think that's great.
Yeah.
The flip side, though, is that there's a lot of useless products coming out, and there's a lot.
Yeah, I was that I'm a little concerned about too. I feel like there's a lot. I mean, maybe it will just work itself out, but a lot of people are jumping on the bandwagon. Like, someone sent me some supplements the other day that were basically like green tea extract. And, they were packaged in a fancy way, but they were silly.
Right. So I say it's the pink gray tax,
Mm,
so just be careful. The one thing that I want to say is that we often hear about how women have been harmed by things in medicine, right? Like
mhm.
thalidomide or the Dalcon shield. but yet we're willing to give all these like supplements or new procedures a pass. And you need to think about these things can be harmful. And
Yeah.
if somebody has your best interest at heart, not their, bottom line of their board, then they'll prove that this thing works and is safe and effective.
Yeah, no, that's a really important point. I'm also curious what you think. I read an article recently, and it comes up frequently, this idea of should menopause be talked about in the workplace, and should there be menopause policies in the workplace? Um, what do you think about that?
Well, I think that you have to be careful because for so long, women have been partitioned off, right? You can't be an astronaut because you're a woman. You can't be the president because you're a woman. Because you're going to be too hormonal and you're going to hit like
Right.
it's like really. Let's talk
Yeah.
about let's talk about who shouldn't be making decisions in the Oval Office. Uh, so I think there's that. I think that on then there's also the flip side is that we have this kludgy biology that gives us this thing half the population doesn't have.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think that there should be accommodations in a way that's reasonable. I mean, I think that,
Yeah.
for example, it's awful when you're in the menopause transition and you can't make your office cooler. Like it's awful.
Yeah, or I meet women who talk about going on hormones simply because they don't want to appear in a corporate environment to be sweating or to be hot. And it's one thing if you choose to go on hormones because you want to, but if you're doing it because you're afraid of how you're appearing at work, I think that's fucked up. And my answer is actually the same as yours. I feel a little conflicted about it because I feel like you don't want to kind of stigmatize women or make them seem hysterical or ill or less than. And on the other hand, I think it's great if it's acknowledged, and women will be more productive if they're getting more support in the workplace. So
I actually think instead of workplace accommodations, we need to just change the culture. So if you look in society where menopause is not treated like death and it's talked about more openly, people actually are less bothered by their symptoms. They're like everybody sort of has a collective better understanding. So in the same way that if you're with food allergies and you say, oh my gosh, I have peanuts, your workplace is like, oh yeah, no worries. We've got we've got peanut free food. They have accommodations for everybody who might need it for their health.
yeah,
So it should be like that. Like actually like, hey, let's just be good people and take everybody's needs into consideration so we can all work together.
yeah, that's great. That makes total sense. Someone in the Facebook audience asked, what do you suggest for painful intercourse due to thinning wall tissues? I think I could answer this one, but go ahead.
Well, the number one treatment is vaginal estrogen, or there's also a hormone called DHEA. And that is really the number one treatment. Now, many people can manage with over-the-counter moisturizers, and if that works for you, that
Oh, what do you think of coconut oil, the old Wolfer favorite?
yeah, coconut oil can work. It's not going to help you with pain with sex though. It's good for the vulva, but it's just not going to have the staying power. The over-the-counter vaginal moisturizers are formulated in a way so they're bioadhesive. So the moisturizer actually found on the tissue. And these things are so effective that in many studies, they're the placebo arm when they're compared with estrogen, and they often perform as well as some of the lower dose estrogen.
Wow.
So
So Vagifem and Estrace and the S string, all those things you prescribe.
all. But what I would say is sometimes it's more than estrogen. So this is the thing that I specialize in is, pain with sex for especially, I see a lot of women who are menopausal and they're given estrogen and the dose is upped and upped and upped and they're still having this problem. And they also have a pelvic floor muscle problem, or they
Mm,
may also have a skin condition. So if you're on a moderate range dose of estrogen or higher, so meaning the cream or DHEA, and you're still having pain with sex after 8 weeks, then you need to be waited to see if there's something else going on.
It does seem like pelvic floor specialists is something that should be more common, that women should be more aware of going to see them. Like I didn't even know that field existed until a couple of years ago after I saw a urogynecologist and then went and found a pelvic floor specialist. And it's a whole world of helpful information. Like I didn't even think about the pelvic floor, like holding up all, it was like visually, it was helpful to kind of understand like this area is getting weaker or, and we need to deal with it. So that's
Yeah,
a really good point.
I deal with pelvic floor problems every single day and every single day I'm in the office. And, it can be a cause of incontinence, it can be a cause of pain with sex, it can be a cause of pelvic pain.
Mhm.
And it is true when you explain it to people, they're like, well, that's weird. I've never heard about it before. But it's very, pelvic floor physical therapy, I'm a huge fan of. And so,
Yeah. I
um,
need to find someone to do that. I really want to do it. The idea of someone like putting their fingers up my vagina to do therapy is pretty funny, but I need to do that. Um,
it can be very,
oh, I know a huge question I've had for you forever, actually. I can't believe I almost forgot. The whole use it or lose it thing. To me, it just makes common sense, but I know you say it's bullshit. Please explain.
yeah, it's a total, I mean, it's based on one study from the 1970s that, would be accepted today. I mean, it was probably adequate for the 1970s, but they didn't even ask, they didn't do the study in the right way. So if you think about it, if you have pain with sex, you're going to have less sex. So this idea that the penis keeps the vagina healthy is so patriarchal.
Well, that's totally offensive. I hear you, but what if you like? Shouldn't you just, if you're not having sex with a man, should you use like I have met lots of women who say, "Oh, I haven't had sex for 5 or 6 years, and then when I go to try it, it's painful." So it wouldn't be helpful to use a dildo or to masturbate regularly to kind of keep the tissues elastic and the juices flowing? That's not helpful.
No, I mean, the reason why they're probably having pain with sex the first time is they're anxious and have a 5 or 6 years. And what if it's with someone who you've never had sex with before and there's minimal foreplay and then you're worried because, so I think that anyone who has any apprehension about having sex, absolutely, then, checking things out on your own is a good idea.
Mhm.
But this idea that the vagina needs to be dilated regularly so it can be ready for a penis, if you think about it in those terms, it sounds awful, doesn't it?
It does. It sounds super insulting. I'm okay. Fine. I hear you.
I mean, you're not the only one. Doctors say this all the time. It's absolutely garbage. I mean, there's no data behind it. This idea that, I mean, otherwise then we'd be seeing all kinds of women who only partner with women who are having, more issues, right? Like it just,
Right.
um,
Okay. No, it's actually such a good lens. I really had not thought of it that way. Just simply from a feminist perspective, it makes absolutely no sense. You're completely right.
what I always say is whenever anything sounds a bit off to me, try to flip the words. So you're saying it well, okay, so it's substitute use it or lose it with the penis. And then
Yeah.
follow that like extension. If I say that to a man, wow, you haven't masturbated in 6 years. Aren't you worried that you're gonna have pain with sex?
Right. You're totally right. Okay, I'm never going to say use it or lose it again. That's great. Now I feel bad for the 6 years I've been saying it.
No,
Um,
but that's why I'm doing all this stuff, right? Because these myths are so pervasive.
yeah, no, it's really good it's great to talk to you. So how, if I may ask, how is your own menopause going? How are you feeling about aging?
Um, I'm feeling fine. I went through my menopause transition probably started when I was about like 45.
Mhm.
I was at a time in my life where I was the most physically active. I was doing boot camp 3 times a week. I was running 4 days a week. I was doing half marathons. And I really think that all of that exercise was probably really protective
Yeah.
against some of the things. And then, my hot flashes got really bad and my night sweats awful. Like my heat still, even on estrogen, sometimes wakes my partner up at night.
Because I'm on therapy too, and suddenly I'm having some hot flashes at night, which is, I've been on hormones for a year and a half, and I don't know where they're coming from suddenly, but yeah.
It happens. And so, you're more likely to have hot flashes in the summer and because it's
Mhm.
hotter outside. So, I tell people, try to just like stick it through like 3 months and see if it's really persisting. Because if it's just an episodic fluctuation, you don't want to change doses.
Yeah, no, I'd rather not go up, exactly, and it's fine. I mean, I basically sleep like a baby now. I'm so grateful for the
That's
hormone. I
great.
sleep so well, and I was always a great sleeper, so that was sleep disruption was the number one perimenopause symptom I had that was super kind of alarming. So you're feeling good. You're 54. Are you still, I mean, I think movement and exercise is so crucial kind of for well-being, and I'm always trying to push myself to do more. Do you do weight training? What do you do to keep yourself fit?
Yeah, so I got off the exercise wagon for about a year and a half and saw the most incredible change in strength and everything. And so I'm back on, and actually I'm working with a trainer virtually, and we have a gym room and weights, and we decided to, set it all up here because we weren't going to be going to the gym anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm trying to practice what I preach, because really weight bearing exercises and strength is to protect your muscle mass, to help you balance. These are the ways to have a healthy longevity.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I struggle with it. I've been doing mostly walking and yoga during COVID, and I just recently joined a group. A Wolfer invited me. She and her young cousin and all of her friends. They're like 40. It's this group of women in Philadelphia who do a really hardcore strength class on Zoom every morning. And I joined them this week. It was really hard, but I know it's what I need to be doing, so I have to try and stick to it.
the very first training session the woman gave me, I was like in tears afterwards. And the next day, I couldn't sit down. Like, it was so sad. I had like turned into veal.
Yeah, I know. And you lose muscle tone. I mean, you notice how quickly you lose it now. I mean, that's a use it or
Yeah,
lose it for sure.
definitely. I would say absolutely. The use it or lose it applies to your muscles. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, absolutely. And there's so much data showing that strength training and weight bearing exercises is so important. And so the goal that I've set for myself is a little bit, I mean, I feel silly saying it, but by the time I'm 56, so I turn 55 in a couple of months, I want to be able to do one pull up.
Oh my God. Ugh, that sounds super hard. Okay, I'm going to check back with you in a year. Wait, is your birthday in August?
It's in July.
Okay, you seem like a Leo. I'm a Leo. I'm August 2nd.
So, we've got the pull-up bar, and I'm just starting by hanging from it. And oh my God, I want to after 10 seconds.
Yeah, that sounds super hard, but a really good goal. And you're right. And how many days a week are you doing it, strength training?
So I'm doing weights 3 days a week, and then my partner is an avid cyclist, so we go biking on weekends, and I'm finally got back into running again too. So after that, sort of realizing that exercise really is magic.
It really does matter.
And I want to just give another plug for when people ask me like what's the best thing they can do menopause, it is exercise. It really is.
Yeah.
More
Good.
health gains than menopausal hormone therapy, and it's going to give you more health gains than anything. So just to keep that in mind.
No, I'm glad you're saying that because I think it's something, it's just true. And it's hard to, it's hard to be disciplined all the time. And you see the effects when you have a friend who's suddenly exercising a lot. You see how good she feels and looks. And, it's just obviously true. So we have to kind of keep reminding ourselves.
I mean, it's hard. Like, it's really hard.
It's
I
hard.
mean, I absolutely get it. And so, but I just decided it's ridiculous. I was doing so well in my menopause transition, actually in the best shape of my life, and I really think that that helped. But
Yeah.
I was kind of getting back to I think I'm in sort of that like super flasher category. I'm still having a fair number of hot flashes, but they're much better on estrogen, and I'm okay with that. I don't want to be on a super high dose. I just want to be on a dose that improves my quality of life.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Great. All right. Well, this has been terrific. And I think we got a good recording. So that's great. It really so nice to meet you in person finally after all these years. And for everyone, if anyone who's tuning in late, it's Dr. Jen Gunter's The Menopause Manifesto. It's her new book. It will tell you everything you could possibly ever need to know about menopause. And, the premise is menopause is not a disease. It's a normal part of life. And yeah, so it's a planned change. Really lovely to meet you. Thank you so much. And we'll see each other again, I'm sure.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thanks.
All right. Take care. Have a good day.